Hello and welcome to Granada Reports, live with the latest news across the northwest.
Hello there. On the programme this evening,
the three dads who've lost daughters through suicide, setting out on a charity walk to get across a powerful message.
Please talk, please reach out. There is hope. We're doing it because we are dads.
an honorary degree for Marcus Rashford's campaigning. He says it's bittersweet after this week's benefits cut.
From care home boy to musician and poet, how Malik turned his life around with the help of a music legend.
And a fabulous sunrise this morning ahead of summertime highs for Friday afternoon. But what about the weekend? Join me later for your full forecast.
First tonight, it is the most unthinkable tragedy, discovering your teenage daughter's taken her own life. And for three dads, the unthinkable happened.
You may remember the story of Mike Palmer from Manchester, who lost his daughter Beth during lockdown last year. In his grief, he met two other fathers who'd also lost their daughters through suicide. And together, they decided to raise awareness.
Tomorrow, they set off on a 300-mile charity walk in memory of their daughters, hoping to spread the word that help is out there. Mike spoke to our correspondent, Mel Barr.
It was like being hit by a wrecking ball. 1 minute I was a busy dad. Next minute I was just basically in pieces, literally under the ground.
Mike's daughter Beth took her own life last year during lockdown. She was 17.
The grief will never go. It's like having a Betty-sized hole carved out of myself. Betty was a wonderful daughter, wonderfully funny. She grew up into a wonderfully loving, ambitious young woman who had dreams, aspirations. You know, she just leaves such a massive hole, I can't explain.
At the time of her death, Mike bravely spoke to us, desperate to stop another young person following the same path.
It saddens me to say, but I don't think she will be alone. I think there will be other young adults, teenagers, feeling exactly the same.
She wasn't alone. Suicide is the biggest killer of under 35s in the UK. And following Beth's death, Mike's joined forces with two other dads who've gone through the same devastating experience. Tim losing his daughter Emily, and Andy his daughter Sophie. And Three Dads Walking was born.
We started talking and we supported each other. And I started thinking, what can we do, Dad, to basically fight back?
Together they found a positive path forward in raising awareness. And on Saturday they'll begin a 300-mile charity walk in aid of the suicide charity Papyrus. The route will take in each of their homes, starting in Cumbria, down through Manchester and on to Kings Lynn in Norfolk.
All three dads believe that if we'd had, as dads, more knowledge and awareness, and Emily, Beth and Sophie had more awareness and had known how to reach out, they'd still be here now. If Betty had realised what she would have left behind, the devastation, she wouldn't have done it. She wouldn't hurt her family and friends. She never would. I don't believe she explored all the options. But on the other hand, I don't believe she knew how to reach out.
The walk will take them 2 weeks, and as they cross the country, they're hoping to pass on an important message to anyone struggling with life.
Look at the options, please. There is Papyrus, there is Hopeline, there is help there. Please talk, please reach out. There is hope, and that's what Three Dads Walking is about. It is about hope. We're doing it because we are dads. And we're trying to make a difference.
Mel Barham, ITV News, Manchester.
And if you've been affected by any of the issues in our report tonight, you can find help and support on our website. Go to itv.com/Granada.
And one development on this story today, actor Daniel Craig, who's from Wirral, has donated £10,000 to 3 dads walking. Fantastic thing to have done.
This evening's other news, and footballer Marcus Rashford has been awarded an honorary doctorate from Manchester University, but says it's a bittersweet moment for him.
Comes in the week millions had their universal credit benefits reduced by £80 a month. The child poverty campaigner says it's the worst possible time to make the cut as a winter of rising costs beckons. Sarah Rogers has this report.
Football star, MBE and now doctor Marcus Rashford accepted an honorary degree at the University of Manchester for his skills off the pitch fighting child poverty. He was watched by footballing royalty Sir Alex Ferguson and paid tribute to those who'd come before him.
We always spoke about following in the footsteps of, great people that we looked up to, and it makes these moments like this that little bit more special.
But it's the 23-year-old who's now blazing a trail for others. But the timing of this latest honour, he said, was bittersweet. It came the day after the £20 a week uplift to universal credit was scrapped, which could plunge some families below the breadline.
It reminds me of my situation when I was younger, to be fair. You've got to decide between, are you going to eat or are you going to be warm in the house? And these are decisions that you don't want people to go through, never mind children. I don't think that the right point for it to end is when families aren't in a stable situation.
His campaigning words were backed by the university's Chancellor, Lem Sissay.
If we don't have people like Marcus Rashford speaking out for the disadvantaged, by the way, I was one of those disadvantaged young people and young adults. If we don't have people like Marcus speaking out for them, then they become invisible.
At the ceremony, his mum Melanie dabbed her eyes, seeing her son's latest achievement. The boy from Wythenshawe said she always did her best, even if sometimes they were hungry. And as a man, he campaigned to end food poverty. Last year, he came here to Fair Share in South Manchester. They supply food banks. In the last 6 months, they've provided 2.8 million meals, double pre-pandemic levels.
He knows what it's like to be in the situation families are facing right now, millions of children in poverty. He knows what it's like, he's lived it.
The government said it was only ever temporary, but is now the right time to cancel that £20?
I'm not sure that it is, with the cost of food in particular going up. We know that there's more bills to pay. Food is the variable in the family budget. We hear all the time about families, working families, whose income doesn't take them into the weekend in terms of food supplies for their children.
The manager from one food bank in Stockport told us that the need now goes far beyond just those on benefits.
They come because they have nothing. Can you imagine those who are on benefit without that £20? It is just going to be devastating.
So how much of a stretch on the government's purse strings would it be to carry on? £6 billion, say ministers. In a government statement said, we've always been clear the uplift in universal credit was temporary. It was designed to help claimants through the economic shock and financial disruption of the toughest stages of the pandemic, and has done so. But speaking after receiving his doctorate, Rashford said he'd continue to campaign.
Doing things like this, it pushes the actual cause anyway, because it's obviously something that a lot of people watch, and then they end up getting involved and finding out more about what I'm doing off the pitch.
The inspirational star has forced a government U-turn once before on the provision of free school meals during the pandemic. Many will be hoping that ministers will listen to him once more. Sarah Rogers, ITV News in Manchester.
More news now, and Cumbria Police have announced a new system so people can check if an officer is genuine. They'll now have to contact their control room and put their radio on loudspeaker so their ID can be confirmed. It comes after the murder of Sarah Everard by a serving police officer. A man from Barrow was jailed yesterday for trying to arrest a woman in a car park by pretending to be an officer.
Lancashire's missed out on the chance to become the next UK City of Culture. It was one of 20 areas bidding to take on the role in 2025. 8 now go forward for selection. Bid leaders say they're disappointed, but the process has helped raise the county's profile.
Strike action on Metrolink trams on the day of the Manchester Marathon has been called off. Drivers are involved in a pay dispute and were due to walk out on Sunday. Transport for Greater Manchester say the action has been cancelled, so normal Sunday services will run with extra shuttle buses to support the marathon.
Now, to mark Black History Month, we've an incredible story of hope and redemption. Malik Al-Nazir from Liverpool was in care homes from the age of 9, where he suffered physical abuse.
But a chance meeting with music legend Gil Scott-Heron turned his life around. The poet and singer died in 2011, but Malik is now a Cambridge scholar. His autobiography has just been published, and Tim Scott went to hear his story.
Deprivation is in our land, but starvation, I just don't understand.
Malik Al-Nazir performing with his band, the OGs. Malik was born and bred in Liverpool to a Guyanese father and Welsh mother, but his childhood was disrupted when his family were moved out of Toxteth to a new estate on the edge of the city.
In school, you would have the school assembly, they would play the story of Little Black Sambo in the jungle. It was the most racist area. It was, we were being racially abused, we were being attacked on a daily basis.
Things got worse for Malik after his merchant seaman father became ill and his mother struggled to cope. Aged just 9, he was placed in a children's home. He would stay in the care system for the next 9 years.
I was ripped from my mother. I was put in solitary confinement at the age of 9 in a room with bars on the windows for 14 days and nights. And it was to be the beginning of what would be a brutal 9 years of in and out of the care system.
Aged 18, Malik left the care system and was left to fend for himself.
I was dumped in a hostel for homeless black youths in post-riot Toxteth. I have no real relationship with my siblings or my mother at that point, and I'm destitute.
But then a chance meeting that changed his life.
You see that black boy over there running scared, his old man in a bottle.
Poet, musician and forefather of rap, Gil Scott-Heron was a giant of American music. Malik met Gil after blagging his way into his gig in Liverpool.
And he said, hey, I heard you had some riots around here, you want to tell me about it? So as I started explaining it to him, he asked the promoter, he said, look, can you take us around? Because, I want to see these places for myself. So they dropped the band back at the hotel, and then I got on the bus with Gil, and I took him on a tour of the riot zone.
The spirits guide us all in different directions, and sometimes they make sure we are exactly where we need to be. So let me say that on the evening that I met the brother in Liverpool some 21 years ago, I was exactly where I needed to be.
That chance meeting backstage was the beginning of an unlikely but incredible friendship. Malik toured the world with Gil and his band. Gil taught him to read, to appreciate poetry and to write.
He wanted to take me out of the situation in which I was in and allow me to sort of see a wider world.
In the years that followed, Malik joined the Merchant Navy, worked in advertising, converted to Islam and studied for a degree. He received an apology from Liverpool Council for its failings during his time in care. He wrote poetry and produced music and, yes, got to hang out with Stevie Wonder, all the while being mentored by Gil Scott-Heron. Do you put where you are today down to that meeting with Gil and what Gil did for you?
Had it not been for the intervention of Gil Scott-Heron as a mentor, as someone who saw my potential, I would not be where I am today.
Malik has just finished his first year of a PhD in history at Cambridge University, and as an authority on the care system, he works alongside policymakers and politicians. His memoir, Letters to Gil, was published last month. Tim Scott, ITV News, Liverpool.
What a remarkable story.
Yeah,
proof that you can spectacularly change your life, can't you?
Yeah, well and truly, well and truly.
Still to come tonight on the programme.
The campaign to bring more of our famous old textile mills back into use.
And we hung on to the sunny spells and warm air today. Cloudier and warmer tomorrow, colder and sunnier Sunday. I'm not sure which one you prefer, but the full forecast a little later on.
Well, at least there's no rain. And here's what's coming up with Charlene in the ITV News at 6:30.
Coming up, the country's biggest ever flu vaccine programme. More than 40 million people are eligible for the vaccinations. But will that be enough to curb the threat of COVID and winter flu? Also ahead, fresh concerns from industries over spiralling energy costs. And the hot shot is back. We'll have all the build-up as Emma Raducanu prepares for her first big match since winning the US Open. Join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
Now, on your daily travels, you're likely to spot one of many old famous textile mills across the northwest region.
There's a lot of them. Historic England say there are more than 450 currently lying unused, derelict or empty, and they could provide vital new homes and offices.
Some of them already have in Liverpool. They're beautiful. Paul Crone has been on the road himself to Manchester and Leigh to find out more.
They're as much a part of our northern landscape as chippies and seaside promenades. The myriad of mills which once dominated our skylines are sadly dwindling. Still here and still making their mark, though, are the Beehive Mill in Manchester, a former soap factory built in 1824, and the impressive Leigh Spinners, a double brick-built cotton mill. Both are perfect examples of Historic England's campaign to reuse old mills for homes and offices.
These are such big buildings on the landscape, especially this one here, Leigh Spinners Mill. You can see it for miles around. So critically important buildings to our heritage, and we need to reuse them and make the most of them because we don't want to lose them.
Back at the Beehive Mill in Ancoats, Manchester, formerly the Sankey Soap Factory, mill workers have been replaced with 21st century office staff, and meticulous detail has been paid to keeping all the best bits of the building whilst meeting the needs of those who now occupy the Beehive.
I used to sit and draw them outside my bedroom window, when I was young. And then years later, I'm there sort of stripping them down and getting them back to what they used to look like.
Historic England says there are 451 vacant and underused mills across Greater Manchester and Pennine, Lancashire. These can offer up to 18,000 homes or 56,000 jobs.
Now, the advantage of refurbishing old mills like this in Leigh is that you avoid carbon emission used in demolition and also the use of steel and concrete in putting up a new building.
But it's not always a case of full steam ahead.
The difficulties aren't with attracting people to come in, the difficulties are actually in finding the money to begin to convert the building, and there are particular difficulties that we've faced, such as the need, for example, to get £50,000 just to get a planning application in because of the scale of additional work and research needed.
Modern construction is so rational that in a way the human has been taken out of it, whereas these mills, you can see the piece of steel, you can see the floor. I mean, these floorboards are like this wide. You just wouldn't do that now because it's too expensive.
The campaign to use the old mills won't work overnight, but as long as these beauties remain standing for future generations, that's a good start. Paul Crone, ITV News.
Love the beams in that office. So cool. Let's get the weather now. Here's Kerry.
Now that is brew weather.
And only boiling what she needs.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Big up you, sis.
Hello, a very good evening to you. The weekend is almost upon us, and after some mist and fog first thing this morning, we did indeed at least see some sunny breaks and highs of around 20-21 Celsius in that sunshine this afternoon. Now, we have got a weakening weather front to the northwest, and that is very slowly trying to push its way south and eastwards as we head into Saturday. As it does so, it will introduce clearer and fresher conditions as we head into Sunday, and on Monday it will feel generally quite cool, but high pressure is nearby, and once more some fairly settled conditions hopefully for our patch, and slightly warmer conditions as we head towards midweek. But overnight tonight, any clearer spells pretty much replaced by thicker cloud amounts as the night progresses, and then we look to the northwest for that front trying to edge into the Isle of Man and Cumbria by dawn. We're still in the warm sector, so fairly mild temperatures once more with fairly light winds overnight tonight. A big thank you to Tom Poxton for this great shot of Tossington first thing this morning. 7:26 and 6:29 are your sun times for Saturday. Tomorrow then, a dry start for many, some morning mist and fog, but as you can see the front starts to edge its way in from the northwest, so Cheshire and the High Peak getting the best of the brighter spells. Into the afternoon, cloudy, bits and pieces of showery rain, and still in the warm sector just above the average for the time of year before that system pushes its way through. Tends to fizzle out tomorrow night, generating quite a bit of cloud and sinking southwards, and then a decent clearance as we head into Sunday, but temperatures back down to the average, at best 15, maybe 16 Celsius, with a light but fairly cool northwesterly breeze. Bit of cloud Monday and Tuesday, and feeling cooler before hopefully improving midweek. Have a lovely weekend.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
2 sugars, please. Oh, lovely.
Kerry, thanks very much for that. Next week on Granada Reports, look out for some special reports on ADHD. Plus, the wild wallabies are flourishing in the Isle of Man.
You heard that right. And on Sunday and all around Britain at 11:55 in the morning, how the Sefton sand lizard is making a comeback.
For now, though, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Good night.